After the Timeout podcast, hosted by Todd Zazadil and John Palicki, two high school head coaches talking basketball on the court, off the court, and anything in between.
On today's episode of the After the Timeout podcast, we sit down with Coach Tyler Whitcomb, head boys basketball coach at Western Michigan Aviation Academy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Coach Whitcomb also creates media for Championship Productions and his company E3 Hoops Analytics. We talk to Coach Whitcomb about his unique and innovative offensive and defensive systems, key analytics to use when assessing your team's success, and what it's like coaching at an aviation and military academy. Enjoy the show.
Coach, thank you for joining us. And we've been talking about every coach. We're in a unique time. So tell us a little bit of how COVID has had an effect on your program, some of the things you've been doing to work with your kids, not only as a AD, but as a basketball coach, and maybe what's been going on in Michigan, right? Because it's different than a lot of other states.
Yeah, so before we get started, I'd like to thank you, John, and thank you, Todd, for having me on. I'm very excited about being a guest on this podcast. I've heard a lot of good things about your podcasts. I've listened to a couple of them, and I love what you guys are doing. So, to dig into the COVID in the state of Michigan in the fall, once fall sports were we were able to play again in the fall, we actually, got clearance by the MHSA to start doing some open gyms and 4-man workouts. And it was, obviously everyone's in the same boat, but we were so far behind just due to us not being able to have summer ball, be able to work with our kids this summer, other than, the typical where we have to check their temperature, ask them a million questions, and we had to play outdoors. So it's kind of a different scenario. And then once we finally got back into the gym, we scheduled our two open gyms that we do a week, where we go an hour of open gym, and we have, rules to it. We're not allowed to be in there, so we have a parent run it. And then we go up in the weight room, and, just during that time, then we scheduled some 4-man workouts and, just the typical, and it felt great being back to normal. And then, of course, the day before tryouts, girls already had their tryouts because they started a week before us, so they put their team together. And then the day before us, our governor shut everything down. So with that being said, we couldn't do any kind of workouts. So some coaches were doing Zoom meetings, but in our case, we didn't have our team selected, and I didn't feel right talking to some kids, not everyone, because, we have a lot of kids trying out. I want to get everyone the equal opportunity. So then what we started doing is just sending like workouts that they can do, and hopefully that they're following them. And, anytime there's a clinic or free clinic or anything popped up, we'd send it their way. But basically, and every coach is in the same boat in Michigan, but we're just behind. This Saturday, the 16th, which is really, really weird, is we can start basketball again on Saturday. So, and then the following Friday, awesome. Yeah, and the following Friday, we play our first game. So usually, typically you have 3 weeks to prepare. Yeah, and we play actually one of the best teams in the state, Benton Harbor. Wilson Chandler's gone there, and a couple other big time players, through the years. And so basically Saturday, we're going to do both of our JV tryouts and both of our varsity tryouts and select a team just on Saturday. And it's not like we haven't seen the kids play before, we already have essentially who should make the team, but you leave some room for a couple kids. And then after that Sunday, we'll have a little bit of a shoot around, kind of optional because it's Sunday, and we have 4 days to get ready. So there's a couple things that we're going to implement and change. And to be honest, we're just not going to. It's we're just going to run a lot of what we ran last year and kind of install little bits and pieces of some new things that we wanted to try with this group, because it's a different group than last year. We lost quite a few seniors. So, so we're ready to go. I mean, COVID's just changed the way you prepared for this year, for sure. But like I said, we're just happy to be back on the court. I'm sure kids are just, loving that we can get back and play. And the funny thing is we're able to get 19 games in 3 weeks. So if you play that first Friday and Saturday and you play 3 games a week for weeks, you can get your 20 games in, but I wasn't able to fill that many. So I got 18. And I'm excited about playing the 18 games. It's going to be like an NBA schedule. So it'll be tough.
So getting into now in your season, and that's awesome because Illinois, we're nowhere near that. Let's kind of talk about, you have so many systems and plays and things that you and I have talked about, and you're really an innovative basketball mind. So what is the process of evaluating what you can use or adapt to your style and your players? Like when you go through all the stuff that you get, how do you decide what works best?
Sure. And that's a good question, because there's things that I do on my team, and then there's also things that, again, I'd love to think of out of the box and try to create new ways of teaching the game and coming up with new ideas for different coaches. And that's kind of my niche that I love. I love evaluating different programs and seeing different things and trying to implement what I can. And I'll guinea pig a little bit in the AAU season with some of the unique stuff. But on my team, I have a longtime assistant coach. He came from Forest Hill Century, Coach Xavier Tillman, when he was there. And we just kind of came up with our own system. And the only thing we add to it is just things that fit that system. But going through how I evaluate is, again, I'm a basketball junkie. So I'm watching, every single newsletter that comes out, I sign up for. Every single time there's a championship productions video, I'm watching it. Anytime there's I belong to probably 50 different websites. Anytime there's something, I'm always looking on Twitter, looking on LinkedIn, and just trying to find different sets, different ways people run things. And then if I like something, is I have like a basketball, like a group that, I run a lot of things by. I always send them stuff and get their opinion. And a lot of them are coaches in the area, and they send me back what they think or how it could work or how they could stop it or if it wasn't for them. And then part of how I would put it into my system is I always send it to my coaches, to my assistant coach, my JV coach. Is this something that we like? Then the next thing is, can it fit into our program, what we're already doing? Does it fit the team that we have? Does it make sense? And if it all does, then it's coming up with the game plan of how are we going to implement it? When does it make sense to implement this? And if it's something that we can't use for our team, then I just file it away. I put it on I have a huge database of plays, and I actually filed them to interesting plays or interesting systems that I love and I'd like to explore. But at this time, it's just something that, our team couldn't use. And a lot of times too is I'll grab it and I'll throw it in the AAU season, just quick throw it in, see if it works, see what I think of it. And if I don't like it, I just trash it. And we'll talk a little bit later about E3 Hoops Analytics, the other business that I own. I'm vice president and part owner, and we track everything. So one of our cool things that we do is customization of playbooks. So when we're doing defensive playbook, we're finding out what works, why it works. Offensively, the same thing sets. So, if I'm running a play 10 times and it's not working, then I'll scrap it. Otherwise, maybe I didn't have the personnel for it. And if I can, see that, then I'll put that aside as well, and then be able to have a nice database of plays I can always go back to.
So let's kind of talk about, you touched on your JV coach, you touched on your, longtime assistant. Let's kind of talk about, obviously you're innovative with your X's and O's. Do you do anything unique with your coaching staff or have any innovative or unique ideas with a coaching staff?
Yeah, with the group I have is me and my assistant coaches have a really good understanding of, on the bench, it's not typical, but a lot of times I'm so engaged in the game and doing the X's and O's is I actually let him make all my substitutions, within reason. And, we usually have a game plan going into the game, and I'll have notes for him, on the sideline of, talking to me about, remember this, remember that, whether it be, how they're defending screens, if they're switching them or if they're going over, how they're guarding ball screens, or they hedge, and, and basically he'll look for little side things that he can come up with. And that way we can adapt to it during the game. But something that unique that I talked about last year at a coaching clinic that I was a guest on is a way that I think the future of the game can be. And I know that sounds a little, little cocky that I'm coming up with the future of the game. But something that I've always thought about is, what if we were more like football teams and we had a special teams coach and his main emphasis every day was just special teams. So jump ball plays, because they've come up with analytics that say if you win the jump ball, you have I know it's only 1% extra, but a 51% chance of winning the game. If you score the first basket, you have a 55% chance of winning the game. So it's like little things that add up. And I think if you had a good jump ball play, a good defensive jump ball play, you worked on it, just even winning the tips, how to position yourself. But those little things can add up. And then if he's working on the blobs and, getting the analytics behind it, this blob play worked, his points per possession for each blob play or slob play. And he was dove into just the special teams of it. And that was his only thing he paid attention to. I mean, think of the advantage the head coach would have to be able to lean on him. Could we do it with the defensive coordinator? So, I mean, some teams only believe in one defense, but the switching defensive teams that a lot of teams are going to, where they're switching and they're making it uncomfortable for teams to get set and be able to run their plays. Could you have a defensive coordinator to where he's diving into that stuff and he's calling plays on the opposite side of the bench, and then you're focused on the offense, or vice versa? Could you have an offensive coordinator if you're the defensive minded guy that's, maybe your defense is just one defense and then the offensive guy's calling a bunch of different sets, then it might make sense to have an offensive coordinator. Could we dive in to like what football does and have a quarterback, like a quarterback coach? We have a point guard coach, we have a ball handling coach, a shooting coach, and we were to give them 15-minute segments of practice. How far could our teams grow? I mean, have we really tapped into any of this stuff? And it's something that I've always felt, if we were, I mean, could it change the game? We were talking the other day, the other thing about changing the game is, you were to come up with, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. But, if you had two teams, so let's say you had a JV team that came up and they're 18-2, but you had a lot of returning players. Could you almost have two teams in one? Could you have 7 players be your blue team on varsity and 7 be your white team on varsity? And then they ran totally different things. So like you had one coach is teaching this team, a bunch of zone traps, 2-2-1s, 1-2-1-1s, and just a different style with that group. And maybe you teach it when they're freshmen, the coach teaches one way, and then when they're JV, they teach another way. And it's basically when they get to varsity of 2 teams. So you have one team that's zone trap and the other team comes in, they're running totally different man-to-man principles, and they're on the line, up the line, and they're really making it tough on you. And you're just subbing every 3 minutes and just throwing something totally different at them, different sets. And basically you have 2 teams in one. And I mean, there's just, again, I think the game's going to keep changing as it keeps progressing, and it's different ways to look at it.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something both Todd and I have experience with, both as assistants and head coaches. And I think, I do something similar to that, even whether it's just specific skill breakdowns. Like I have just one rebounding coach, and that is her focus is rebounding. And I think not only does it make it more of an innovative idea, but it also helps you build that ownership within your coaching staff of, they know this is their part of the game, and it really allows them to take ownership in the team, in the system, in the ideas that you want to portray as the head coach. I think that's a great idea.
Oh, thank you. And I agree with you. I mean, I never even thought about that, about a rebounding coach. I mean, then they're diving into that, and it's like they're owning it, and they're an expert in that field for your team. And I mean, think of that knowledge that your players can gain just by that.
All right, so you talked about a little bit, you're kind of watching everything, right?
Yep.
And college games, NBA games, and all that to add to your program. So, this is always an interesting question because coaches are always looking for something. What teams are you watching right now? What's interesting you right now?
Well, I'm kind of biased and I'm kind of a homer, but I'm a huge Michigan fan, so I'm loving what Juwan Howard.
But they're playing some darn good defense right now, that's for sure.
They are. They guard every action. I mean, they guard the ball screens as good as you can guard them. I mean, they're blitzing, they're helping, they're recovering. I mean, they're doing things at a high level too. I mean, fast and tough and tenacious, and they're just fun to watch. And they play so well together on offense. They move the ball, and they're not running anything. They're actually, I stole 2 of their horn sets that they run, but for the most part, I mean, they're running pretty basic stuff. They're just getting the ball in transition and swinging the ball from side to side, making reads and driving and kicking, and kind of simple action. And then some of their sets are some great horn sets. If and I think Jordan Sperber just came out from Hoop Vision just came out the nice little breakdown on Michigan, and it's nice to see, because I'm a huge Michigan fan and I love Juwan Howard. So I mean, that's something that, being biased and being a homer, that's kind of the team I'm watching. But teams that I watch and around the NCAA is, I'm a big Furman coach right now. I love Bob Ritchie's stuff just because I watched a lot of his championship productions videos. And two, a little background of me is I create all the E3 hoops. My business also creates all the playbooks of all the videos from championship productions. So that's why we watch a lot of the videos. So we're able to get we have access to almost every video. And so I've had a lot of fun and also it's fun to learn different systems and what coaches are trying to do. I've always been a huge Tony Bennett fan. I know it's not typically what I do, but about 10 years ago, I was a huge pack line and a mover blocker guy. So when I watch him, I just love what he does. I'm a huge fan of him. Lavelle Moulton from Central. I'm loving what he's doing. Ed Cooley has some great sets, especially because he's a flex guy. And the way the game keeps going up and down, now it's all fast paced and small ball. And I wonder if in 10 years, if the game's going to go backwards and really look for teams that can execute in the quarter court again and slow it down and be able to, high low it, or even going back to some kind of modified flex and be able to, take away the dribble drive, base teams, or it seems like right now everyone's ball screen continuity or dribble drive or, a 5-out team. And it's great for now. It's just the way the game's adapting. But I just wonder in like 10 years if it's going to go back to that real strong, eat some clock and really get the ball inside. So those are some of my favorite guys.
All right, so let's go back, and you kind of just mentioned it used to be a pack line guy.
Yeah.
We were all young and thought we knew what we were doing at one point, right? And we really didn't. So when you were, you've seen all these systems, all these things. Go back to when you first started. What were some of the things that piqued your interest or you were trying to do when you were a young coach?
So when I was young, I got in. I was a junior college assistant right away under a Hall of Fame basketball coach. He started off. He is a Western Michigan's head coach. He didn't last long. He got fired, but he got to coach against Magic Johnson. That's how old he is. I don't mean to talk crap about him, but he's a little older. And then he took over a community college in that area, and he ended up getting 600-700 wins. I forgot what the exact total is. So during that time, I really picked his brain, and he was a huge flex guy, two-man motion stuff, a lot of the two-guard stuff that Michigan's running now. So I was able to pick his brain on that and learn a lot of basic fundamentals of, at the time, sagging man-to-man defense. And then as I progressed, I really fell in love with this offense way back in the day called the Deweyville Shuffle offense. So I studied it. And the funny thing is I never ran it once. But I just remember having this notebook and just studying it and thinking, oh man, this will work, just because of the different actions, and all 5 guys play all 5 positions. And, you're able to, go from side to side. And then when you move it from side to side, you basically have a one-man action for a one-on-one on the side. So things I liked about it. But then as I progressed as a young coach, I took over as a JV coach and a freshman coach and a girls coach and an AU coach all over the West Michigan area. And it was just like whatever that coach was running, I was kind of running. So I learned different aspects of the game and things I liked and things I didn't like. And then I ended up at Granville under this coach that won a state title. And he was huge on pack line defense that Mike Heidemann ran. So it was basically the pack line, but it was no middle. It was dead front in the post. It was double in the post from the top. So it was a little bit different, but kind of the same concept. And I like the pack line, how you're always in the gap, but it's only one action. So if they kick it out, you're already in help position, and it's just one action to get out and guard the 3-point shot. So my first job head coaching, I did a lot of zone because I was coaching girls, and it just fit what I did. And we developed a system to where we were pressing and full court, and we were turning teams over. We were creating about 38 turnovers a game. That's all we spent our time on, is learning how to press. So I just didn't have basketball girls, and it was able to, buy us some wins. And then when I got my first boys job, of course, I became a pack line guy. And what I didn't like about it is teams that weren't as good as us, we couldn't smash them, because all they would do is we couldn't take the game away early. And sometimes teams that didn't have as much talent to hang with you just because they could get sides, they could reverse the ball, they could sit on the ball. And so what I kind of created, at Aviation now, is we are a pack line team. I know it sounds funny, but we're in the gaps when the ball's up top, and in transition we go paintball man, and then we try to be in the gaps. But when the ball gets to a side, then we become a pressure on the line, up the line, man-to-man pressure team. We don't let the ball back. We kind of scout the opponent. If they're point guard oriented, we do not let them get the ball. We'll face guard it. And we learn to play 4-on-5 every day at practice. We go 4-on-5 drill. And then we're able to fire out of it, where we trap and rotate, and then we run different trapping zones. So it kind of evolved into that. And that's kind of where we are now. And that's why whenever I see something I like, I'll implement it. But usually I go back to what I have. I was talking to John one time about the 4-1 zone defense, and it's so unique because you can blend it and you can camouflage your defense into other defenses. But also the one main thing is you're fortunate to the corners where you can trap. And I like to throw different things throughout the whole game. We'll throw some token presses to slow teams down if we have to. But bottom line is it's like any coach. You start off learning something, and as you progress as a coach, you just find out what works, find out what doesn't, and move on. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is on defenses. That's the system we run.
So I just have a really unique question to you. So, Todd and I both like to do our homework on everybody that we talk to on the podcast. And I thought it was so unique that you've been a head coach at an aviation academy and a military academy. So what are some things that you've learned in working at, two different unique academy schools, as a coach and working with those athletes?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different, and it's funny because I got asked this question in the last interview I had, and the truth is Aviation Academy is a charter school in Grand Rapids. It's owned by Dick DeVos, same guy that owns Orlando Magic, and basically it's just a charter school. He fell in love with aviation and education. So when he lost as a governor, this is years back now, he decided to start a school, and we're a really unique school to where kids actually learn to fly. We have kids that are getting their pilot's license before their driver's license. So it's a very unique school, and it's very high academics. So just to give you a background, this fall in cross country, our team GPA was over a 4 point. Volleyball was like a 4.26. And then our soccer is a 3.86. So I think our overall GPA in all athletics was over a 4 point this fall. A couple of years ago, we had a basketball team that's fourth in the state. It was like a 3.76 GPA. So it's a different style of kids. I mean, I've coached different levels. I've coached different schools, private schools, public schools. I've coached girls, I've coached boys. So it's just another learning curve of, there's goods and bads to all of it. And with this, I get a good group of kids that are willing to come in and have manners and listen and work their butt off. So it's really rewarding to coach this group. And I can't really talk about the military academy because I got hired in Indiana, and it was about a 2-hour drive, and they gave me a place to stay. So basically my goal was to turn around this athletic program and be the basketball coach. And, we got some pretty good players in there, but as the process was going on, I just had to come back home. It wasn't working out because, something family wise, I had to come back home, and I got offered my job back at aviation. So it was weird. I left aviation for about 8 months, and I was actually an athletic director for 2 schools while they were trying to find their athletic director. And then they just said, why don't you just come back? We can make it work for you. And then I ended up coming back to aviation. So I actually never coached a game, even though I worked with a lot of the kids and 4-man workouts and tried to get the program really going. But yeah, so it's just a unique and it's a different group. It's kids that, you know, it's kind of old school. I mean, they'll go through the wall for you. So it's really fun to coach that kind of kids. And two, it's the funny thing is being an athletic director and coach, I've come from a different programs where, you know, you get some parents commenting on playing time. And at the school in the 4 years I've been here, this is going on my 5th year, we've had about 10 complaints in 5 years total. So it's just a unique, different group where parents don't live through their kids. They're sending their kids there mainly for academics. And then, you know, playing basketball is just a side note. And, you know, we've been blessed with some pretty good talent, and we're able to do really good against other charter schools. And, you know, and it's a little bit of a challenge when we play up and we play some of these public schools that have been around for a long time, or private schools that have been around for a long time. It can be a challenge, but the one thing I know with this group is they're always going to give everything they have, and it's rewarding. It's fun as a coach.
All right, so you talked a lot about your E3 hoops analytics, and there's so many analytics, right? Like there's so many numbers. So for your program and what you're doing, what are your key analytics? And then
Sure.
what do you think some of the more important ones are for maybe something that you don't necessarily use but could be important for other teams?
Sure. So, you know, again, just working with you, I'm a huge basketball junkie. Like I tell everyone, I'm always trying to find a creative way to win, or an innovative way that if it doesn't work for us, maybe for someone else. And I love creating X and O's, but analytics, I even probably like more. I mean, I'm one of those guys that I'm always trying to read up. And, you know, my business partner, he's a basketball analytics guy for the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm always being able to run things by him. And the funny thing is, what started the business is about 3 years ago, he was looking for teams to guinea pig and just do it for free. And I was like, well, heck yeah, you know. And the first time I ever got a report is about 12 pages on all these analytics. And I just thought it was kind of neat is that even though there's tons of information, I asked him, I said, well, I'm just trying to find what gives me the advantage. I don't need all these, you know, advanced metrics and,
Right.
you know, right. You know, like what makes sense? Like, and he said, you know what? He started laughing. He goes, you know what? Even at the Dallas Mavericks at the highest level is, you know, in the front office, they want all these different, you know, they're watching game. They're coming out with all these different ways to measure the game. And he goes, it's funny when you talk to Rick Carlisle, is he just wants 3 things, you know, and it's funny how we dive deep into all these analytics. And bottom line is, what intrigued me about E3 Hoops and joining him is we're just trying to create an advantage for a coach. Like we want to be an analytics team for high schools that can't afford an analytics team, and work with the coach and find out what works for them. So when you ask me what works for our team, is something that's unique for us is 6-0 runs. We did a measure years back, and this is again taking this from my assistant coach, but you know, everyone always talks about stop or score, stop, score. And if you do 4 of them, well, the funny thing is we track 6-0 runs in a game. And anytime we've gotten 4 in a game, we've won every game but one. So it's like a 98% chance of winning if you get 4 6-0 runs in a game. And then even if you're a +3, so if you're 3-0 or, you know, whatever the case may be, it's still like an 88% chance you'll win. So, and the funny thing is, what I like about it is the bench is engaged in it. So if you're on a 4-0 run, they're acting like it's the last play of the game, you know, 4-0 run, 4-0 run, and they're yelling it. So our team knows we got to get one more stop, so we have a chance at a 6-0 run, because it's that important. If we get 4 6-0 runs in a game, there's a good chance we're going to win the game. Even a 3 6-0 runs in a game leads to like a 77% chance of winning. So that's a huge stat we track. Something that I love and what E3 does really good at is playbook customization. So I send my playbook in. Now I'm part of the company, but basically you take the playbook and you see what works. You know, you go throughout your whole playbook, and defense and offense, and basically what lineups are in when you're running these plays, if it's after timeout, and you're finding out what works. And that's bottom line is, you know, what works after timeout, what works after a made basket, what works after made 3-point basket, what can you get into defensively. So it's like different things that you can look at. What's important to me is how you guard the 3-point shot. You know, how do you guard, you know, in transition the 3-point shot? You know, those are important things that will win games and translate to wins. So those are things that we're looking for. A cool thing is, everyone always talks about a coach comes in and we're a running team, just because he looks and it looks like they have athletes. Well, sometimes you're not, so I think a good way of measuring it is points per possession on ball reversals. So what are you doing on 2-3 ball reversals? What are you doing on, number of passes? What are you doing, on pace? Like if you're scoring in the first couple, or you're getting a shot up in the first couple seconds next to the 7 to 15-second mark. I mean, those are things that you can really measure as a coach to find out what'll give you the best advantage to win games. And that's something that I think every coach could take advantage of. And if they really dove deep in, they really wanted to find out what makes their team tick. I mean, these are little measurements that you can do. And you could be a totally different team where you already know what you are. You're not changing. You're a pack line team. And, it could be, how many times you stopped a team from scoring a transition and you made them scoring you 5-on-5, and you track that. I don't know what it is, but we worked with the team and they're so big on winning those first 3 steps in transition. So we started measuring check marks, checkpoints. So how fast can your 2 and 3 get to the deep corner? How fast can your 5 beat the other 5 to the rim run? So he's beating that other 5 to the checkpoint. So we started measuring checkpoints, and believe it or not, that helped him create a way to really show players what it takes to play their style of ball and win. But going back to my system, it's funny, is 6-0 runs is huge for us. So it's I know it's kind of different, but it's something that we always go by, and kids really bought into it. And then, the points per possession on ball reversals is big for me, just because, I'm one of those guys where if things aren't working, I can't run a quick hitter real quick. Then I'd like to get a couple sides and really make the defense play defense and see if they can grind out with us. So that's something that I can show my players, like, look, if we do this, and if it backfires on me, then of course I don't show them that. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
then your playbook's important, like what's working, what's not, and get rid of stuff, and things are working, keep running it.
That's a perfect lead in, Coach. And it was funny, you and I have talked off air a couple times, and, you and I both, like unique, outside the box, innovative ideas. But I'm sure, like me, you've had times where you try something and it doesn't work. So, have you tried something innovative, and then after you tried it and you saw your team do it and you said to yourself, wow, that didn't work out at all? What do you learn from those situations?
A lot of times you learn. What's funny is I've tried about everything. I gotta be honest with you, over my years, and I'm one of those guys who I will try something that's crazy. And you just learn from it. If it doesn't work or if it looks horrible, you just say, that was great, or why didn't it work? And then you try it again and somehow it works. But there's been a time where I remember when I was at Trinity Christian, I was coaching the girls. I went to this coaching clinic and I was nuts about this zone offense, this 2-3 zone offense. And I was watching him play. He sent, I asked the coach to send me videos of this offense, and I really learned it. And then I drew it up for my team. And I'm like, I'm going to get away from the traditional 2-3 zone offense. It's either, you cross it where you're going short corner or flashing, or you run someone baseline. And I went to run this offense, and we were horrible. I think we scored like 7 points in a half. And I was embarrassed. I'm like, why didn't I came home? Then I realized, like, the size, like of course it's going to work when you have 6'3" girls and 6'4", and I'm turning around, I have in the post 5'7" and 5'6", or 5'8", whatever it is. And then I realized, what, I think I'm going to scratch this. But I could see where it would work if I ever got a college program. Maybe that would work, and the first time I ever ran the 4-1 zone defense is a guy didn't rotate quick enough. And the only reason I ran it, I told you, is just because I loved when I was in a 2-3, and I loved to come up and pressure the ball and then take away the next pass or trap it on the first pass. So we threw in the 4-1 one time just by mistake. And I was like, wow, that's, by putting that person back there, they have to go to the corner, because, typical defenses, you go odd front receive in front. In this case, we're in a 4-1, but they're still going an even front against it, and they're throwing it to the corner. So it's really easy to trap. But I remember the first time we ever ran it, the guy didn't rotate, and they just got an easy layup out of it. And I was like, I'm not going to run that ever again. And remember scrapping. Then I remember watching the video that night, and I was like, if he would have dropped, they would have turned it over. So then the next game we ran it about 3 or 4 times, and we were 4 for 4. We created 2 turnovers, and then we rushed them into shots. And then it was one of those things where I just always kind of had it in the back pocket. I've always ran it, but I've never dove deep into where, because I explained kind of our system, but I would always like to see a team just run it as their main defense, and then have like different, where they're just basically camouflaging different defense and just constantly throw different things at teams, because I really believe in that defense. But and then also there's a time where I was reading this coach that camouflaged a 2-2-1, and he'd start off in a 1-2-1-1, then he'd just take the person that's up top and just sprint them back on the first trap. And so I tried it, and for whatever reason, it didn't work, and we gave up a layup, and I didn't try it again for about 2 years. And then one time I had this group, and I wanted to switch something up during a game, because we were a 2-2-1 team, like a token 2-2-1, and we'd slow teams down. And one time we tried a 1-2-1-1, and it worked. They called a timeout. We were back in the 1-2-1-1, and I tried it again, and it worked. So, I mean, it's just like anything. It's, trial and error. You find out what works, what doesn't. There's no right way to play this game. I mean, that. And I failed at things that I think would work, and succeeded at things that I didn't think would work, that were a little gimmicky. So.
You just talked about trying your things and, being willing to try different things. We're obviously the After Timeout podcast. We talk about, one of our things is we talk about after timeout all the time. So what is something unique or innovative that you did after a timeout that maybe a coach from another team or somebody told you, like, oh man, I've never thought about that before?
A set that I love, that we kept getting blitzed in the pick and roll one game, and we were running a little bit higher than we normally do, because we run a little bit of ball screen side continuity offense, European stuff. And one time we just decided to short roll the guy, and we do a little bit where we short roll, we hit him, and then he swings it and we play out of it. But basically on the flight of the ball, when the guy was short rolling, we had another guy pick and roll. So on the flight, right when he caught it, it turned into another pick and roll in the middle of the court, and it was so wide open. So it's a set that we use now. So we call it a buttons roll. The only reason is an old nickname. And so basically, if you think about it, it's just a pick and roll, and then on the flight of the ball to the short roller, you're automatically, the guy that's farthest removes already into another pick and roll. So there's no one to tag the roller on it. And it's something that's unique. I love different sets. Like, I love when coaches run different sets, or a coach tries to set you up. We were playing this team. They kept running zoom action, to where they come off of a down screen into a dribble handoff, and they kept running. It wasn't working. We were pretty good at guarding it. And I felt he was setting me up, because he kept going to it to kind of stall us and to get sides. And then all of a sudden, out of a timeout, he ran the zoom action, and then he just went right back to the same side and set a flare screen. We didn't know how to guard it. And the guy was wide open and drained a 3 on us. So the funny, unique thing is I stole the play from him, and it worked in an AU game. But, I just love seeing different coaches run different things and what we can take. I'm a huge, fan of, like, Ryan Pannone. He's a G League coach. He's always coming up with unique sets. Doug Novak, Chris Oliver, Jordan Sperber. There's so many great minds out there. Pascal Muir, and just finding different stuff that works. But I've had different coaches run different things at me, and I just loved it. So I'd go home and draw it up. Again, if we could use it. Otherwise, file it away. But I thought something that was cool is the first time we ran the 4-1, we gave it up. But the next time we ran it, no one saw it coming. And again, I told you we were 4 for 4, but we just really, really shocked this team. I thought another cool thing is cherry picking. I've got 4 videos coming out probably in the next month or 2 on Championship Productions. One of them's running a cherry picking system. One's a modified pack line defense with no middle and dead front the post and trap from the top. I got a UCLA missile offense. It's basically a UCLA offense turned into a misdirection, a reversal pin down screen that's really hard to guard. It's really cool action with some high-low action, and then what else was it? Oh, and then elevation, the offense that I created where it's based on the elevator horns action. And it's just side-to-side action and calls out of it, but it's 2.0. So just coming up with different stuff and being able to have the guts to do it. But the coolest thing ever is when you throw out a cherry picking system, you have a guy cherry picking and you get a quick steal or a long rebound, because a lot of times you're sagging and you're dropping to the level of the ball. So you're giving up possibly a 3-point shot, but the ball goes long and you already got a guy cherry picking. So you're getting pretty much a layup out of it. So, I mean, if you're measuring a game and if you can get a lot of easy baskets, that'll win games as well. So just coming up with unique ideas, but also being able to understand that other coaches have great stuff and being able to study what they're doing and be able to use some of the stuff. But I've seen some crazy stuff. But as far as innovative, a lot of times coaches run kind of what you see on video. They might switch some stuff up during playoffs or in the beginning of the year, they'll catch you off guard. But for the most part, I don't see too much innovative stuff run against us, but I'm also not in a huge league either, if that makes sense.
So it was funny you were talking about all the different things coaches do. So Todd and I in our podcast, we always like to finish with a little bit of a fun top 5. So you've seen a lot of basketball, you watch a lot of basketball, because of E3 and because of championship productions, you create a lot of playbooks of a variety of different systems. And like you said, there's different ways to be successful in basketball. There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's what the coach is comfortable with and what you have the talent for. So in all the different playbooks and all the different things you watch, Todd and I are curious, give us your top 5 most interesting systems or innovative ideas that you've learned or seen.
I think the lock left defense was kind of cool. The guy Dave Smart out of Canada that's won, I think, 14 national championships, and Point Guard College, there's a coach that runs it like Tyler Cohen. But basically, you are pushing everyone to the left on no matter what side of the court you are. And you are in on the high side shoulder, and it's just basically geared around making them go to their left hand. So I thought it was kind of unique, but there's, a whole system to it. I thought Aaron Fern's tagging system, where he's teaching you to pin guys in on offensive rebounds, and then you have a 50-50 chance of getting the ball, but also you're preventing them from transition. So you're just pinning them in so they can't leak out. Everyone's in charge of pinning that guy in. It's kind of unique. A lot of the European teams are starting to adapt to it. His video is really unique and really creative and innovative. I love that. The 1-1-1-2 Gilly defense, where it's basically a 1-1-1-2 defense. It's a different look, but also because of the look that you're showing, you have different angles to trap. Offensively, I love Alicia Komicki. She's Sierra Canyon, where LeBron James' son goes, but she's the women's coach or the girls' coach. She's won 4 state titles in the last 5 years. She runs a whole Iverson offense, so everything is based off the Iverson set and cut, and I just love it. I was fortunate enough to create a playbook for her, and just looking and watching her videos, I was blown away at how easy. And it's just unique. No one knows how to guard that action because no one's seen a full offense. Like everyone runs an Iverson set. I even have a playbook where it's an ultimate Iverson set series, but this is a full offense just dedicated around different actions and how people guard the Iverson. And it's unique. It's creative, and it's something that I love. And then plugging away, Jordan Sperber did something on Hoop Vision a while back on the pistol offense, and how unique Canisius, I believe, ran, instead of setting a flare screen for the pistol, they would set a UCLA ball screen, and it was a different action, and you were able to reverse it a little bit quicker. So I just like seeing different unique stuff or hybrid and like 2 offenses put together. And then again, plugging my stuff is the UCLA P missile offense is basically UCLA. I just thought it was hard because, if let's say the point guard throws it to the side and comes off the UCLA ball screen, that point guard's chasing or switching, and then you quick reverse it to the other side and he's coming off of a pin down. It's just a lot of action that guy has to guard. And if you switch it or cheat it, then you have a post-up opportunity. And then my elevation offense was unique at the time, and we've added so many play calls to it. And it's just unique and it's different. And it's, again, not that I'm plugging away my stuff and thinking I'm the only innovative coach out there. There's so many innovative coaches. Even talking to you the other day, John, just some of your ideas on offense, and then your system that you have on defense is just unique. And it's just, I love talking to coaches that have a different style and a different way of thinking of the game, and always constantly trying to find what'll make your team go the next time, the next year. Every year is different. Every team has a different makeup of players, and you go from year to year. You don't want to switch up too much stuff, but every year it's nice to tinker with what you have and add a little bit to it. So again, my top 5 is probably Alicia Kamicki's Iverson offense. I'd check it out. The 1-1-1-2 Gilly defense is kind of cool. The lock left defense is nice. And then the Aaron Fern tagging system, if you guys haven't seen it, it's unique, and it's a way to stop transition offense, but also gives you a chance at winning the 50-50 balls, and you're pinning that guy in. So if you're shooting a lot of threes, again, the ball is going long, and guess what? You can really capitalize and grab those rebounds.
It was funny, as you were talking about all those, then you got me Googling on the side all those different ideas. But Coach, we really appreciate it. You have so many unique ideas and so many connections into the game, and I've enjoyed talking to you off the air. So please, guys, please follow Tyler Whitcomb, Coach Tyler Whitcomb, on Twitter. He's got some great ideas, obviously as the vice president of E3, but also his work with Championship Productions. He's an innovative coach. You can follow him on Twitter at @TWhitcomb. And I can speak from firsthand knowledge that he's willing to share the game, willing to talk the game with anybody. So, Coach, thanks again for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you again, John and Todd. Hope you guys have a good one, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the After the Timeout podcast. For more information and upcoming episodes, follow us on Twitter at After the Timeout, or subscribe to our podcast for upcoming episodes. You can find all of our episodes on Anchor.fm, Spotify, Overcast, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts by searching After the Timeout. Thank you for listening.